Okay, so now we're going to talk about running the numbers, a very important process, and we're going to go through the whole entire process for you. My favorite quote with running the numbers is to do the numbers, and the numbers will tell you what to do. If you're someone like me, okay, now we're going over the numbers. We're going to do a live example of punching in the costs, punching in the projections, and figuring out exactly if a property is going to make sense. This is the numbers crunching lesson. My favorite quote regarding numbers and regarding running the numbers is do the numbers and the numbers will tell you what to do. You're oftentimes going to be concerned, should I move forward on this project? Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Don't ruin your mind with questions like that. Just do the numbers. And if the numbers make sense, then it makes sense. Obviously, make sure the numbers that you're putting in there are proper, but that's why we have the Air DNA lessons where we go over exactly how you can determine how much revenue you're going to make. Once we know how much revenue you're going to make, we need to punch in the expenses, and we want to see this on a 4-year basis, basically. So we're going to check out the screen behind me in just a second. I'm going to minimize it, and we're going to run right into a live training on how to run the numbers. So let's jump right into it. This is the sample calculator that all of you will be downloading. So take a look at this and get familiarized with this. It gives you gross profit margin for 4 years, gives you cash on cash for 4 years, and it gives you your monthly profit margin every month, basically. You can also put over, however many properties you want in here. You can always just expand it if you're good with Excel. But I listed it here with 5 or 6 or 7 different categories here. In case you want to run the numbers on a much bigger project, 3, 4 units, 4 or 5 units, whatever it is, you can punch this all in here and it will all automatically calculate. Only thing you're really responsible for punching in is the occupancy rate and the average daily revenue, which will automatically plug in all the data. And then, of course, we have to plug in our own fees like rent and whatnot. But let's use this exact property as an example, which is one that I'm actually going into contract on. I already ran the numbers on this one. It works, so it's going to be a good one. But let's take a look. So the first thing we're going to do is pop up our rentalizer on AirDNA. First step is to put in the address in the rentalizer and see what the numbers the algorithm provides say. The algorithm, again, is looking at comps in the area and giving you a number based on the average daily rates and occupancy rates that it thinks you will be able to produce. It's always a good starting point. I never stop there, but I always like to first just take a peek there. So 18560, North Beach 20th Court, Miami Beach, Florida. Go. Okay, so this is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and if it's 4-bedroom, typically I say 2 per bedroom, and then an additional 2 for any couch sofas or futons or air mattresses, anything like that. So 4 bedrooms, 8 people, I'll go up to 10. Okay, so that changed it drastically. Let's drop it to 8 just to see if the algorithm at least gives us a different number here. Nope, same about number, so it really doesn't matter if we advertise for 8 or 10. I guess you might as well advertise for 10. That much more likely you'll get an offer. So next, we're going to review the comps on the rentalizer, and we're going to check for any outliers that could be skewing the data here. So let's take a look down here. See what we got going on. We have a 4-bed, 4-bath. This property has a pool. I'll actually pull it up so you can see the exact property. And don't worry, guys, by the time you're reading this, this will be a long under contract. So you're not coming in here to snag this one out. So they had it listed for sale, actually. And just from speaking to realtors, I was able to determine that they are open to renting it as well, not just looking to sell it. So we have the property up here. We're going to use this just to kind of look around at what the comps look like. Big outdoor, big basement, pool. Looks pretty nice in here. It's a pretty high-end place. Patios outside. We're going to spruce it up a little bit, add some stuff to the maybe some hammock chairs and a gazebo, some more outdoor furniture. There's some string lights. We're going to make it look really nice, but you can see what type of property this is. And then we're going to go back here and see what type of property. So, okay, this one, 176, doesn't look too much different than the one we have. 3-bath, sorry. 3-bath. That shouldn't change the numbers very much. Change numbers a little bit though, a little bit of something. So, and then the comps went down. So this one did 176. This is why you gotta be very careful with the beds and the baths. The bath is not going to be the end of the world for sure, but definitely it's nice to know that at least we can expect a little bit of a price difference there between 3 and 4 baths. So we're looking at these properties. Do they look comparable? This one did 185. This one did 176. This one did 184. Very, very similar. I can easily put a pool light in mine to make sure it glows like this. We'll have the outdoor furniture. We'll have the hammock chair. We'll make it look really nice. We have a bigger yard than what's at least being shown in these two. But, I mean, this one doesn't have any outdoor furniture, no gazebo, nothing like that. So the comps seem to make sense. And more importantly, if anything is skewing the data, it's this one here, which is only available for 139 days. They charge an extremely low rate. This is probably someone, they don't have it listed on both. They only have it listed on VRBO. So this is probably someone immediately that is just listing their property when they're not around or something like that, trying to make a little bit of extra money. If anything though, it's skewing the data negatively. Our property is not going to come in here and do 40K a year, but this number without this comp would be much higher. So if we were only using these comps, this number would be much higher. What I'm looking at here is I see 160 from the algorithm, 646, 68%. I'm looking over here. That seems to make sense. 78%, 60%, 71%, 63%, 797, 506. Obviously, a little bit lower average daily rate, a little bit higher occupancy. These guys are doing all the right things apparently. They got a great average daily rate, great occupancy. Still $100 less than these guys, but we're talking about over 15% more. Their title is also stand out too. I mean, just look, it just stands out more than the other ones. They have asterisks in there, and that kind of catches your attention. I like to put little emojis in mine, especially by the beach, little sun emojis. They go a long way, and I always include when I'm by a big attraction, a beach or something like that, how far I am away from the beach or whatever the attraction is that the people are coming to. These guys definitely could have done better with the title. They didn't even utilize all the space. Whenever you see someone who didn't utilize all the space, it's like, why? You're just leaving extra advertising on the table. There's no reason to leave extra advertising on the table. Miami Beach, I guess that's what that stands for. They didn't spell gorgeous. What the hell? I don't know what they did there, but as you can see, guys, there's a lot of areas to fix on, and these people are still making money. Still did 184K in revenue, available for the full year. Had it at 60% occupancy. Maybe if you learned how to spell gorgeous and spruced up your title, that'd be better. If I dove into this even further, I'm sure I would find more things I can criticize and pick at, but that's not why we're here. We're just here to go over running the numbers. So for base numbers, 646, 68% occupancy, we're going to punch that in right away on the base numbers. 646, 68% occupancy. 646, 60% occupancy. We're going to punch that in. Sorry. And then we're going to go back here and we're going to go to the next step. So the next step is checking out the comps. We got to determine our percentiles, right? So because we can sort the data by percentiles, we need to determine where we fall. Remember, the two variables that will determine the percentile are the physical attributes and the service. Physical attributes of the property and the service that we can provide. So we're going to go to the top properties and in the area and see what amenities they offer, see what they look like, and compare them to our own property with a realistic determination of where we can operate. So we're going to go to the top properties tab. We're going to wait for this to load up, and we're going to objectively determine where we can fit our house in these top properties based on the amenities and the physical location. Amenities and physical location. We have a 4-bedroom. We're going to drop that down to 4. Cannot accommodate more than 10. Let's apply changes. Okay, so top properties are killing it. They are doing fantastic. So let's take a look and see where realistically we may be able to fall in here. So let's take a look at this one. $3,200 square feet. We can see that. Ours is 2,300 square feet. So we're 1,000 square feet shy. Right away, that's telling us we're not making the amount of money that this property is making. It is 1,000 square feet bigger. It is significantly larger. So we're not going to make this much money. But let's still continue to take a look to see exactly where we're lacking and exactly where we can make up. They have a tiny little pool here. It looks a little bit nicer, but it's smaller. And I don't see any yard area. A little bit of yard area on the left-hand side there. Super small pool. I mean, obviously it's a magnificent house, so take that into consideration. Okay, so, I'm looking for where we're winning on this property. Where we're beating this property is the yard space. We have better yard space. We have more we can do there. We might be able to set up a volleyball net. Might be able to set up a badminton net. We can do with certain things in those yards, put some additional outdoor furniture there, a little reading nook, maybe a greenhouse gazebo. We have options there, but we definitely don't have a nicer interior than this house. And it's obviously a nicer house. It's 1,000 square foot bigger. It looks like it's a little more tight and crowded in the back area. But it's super nice back here. So, we're not going to produce these numbers. We're not going to come in here and do 686 for the year, which is fine. We don't need to come in and do 686 for the year. We can find something that's a little more our range. This one is, again, a 4.3. Let's. I go to VRBO because it tells us how many square footage there is, and Airbnb doesn't tell you the square footage. Sometimes when you do this, it will not bring you to the right property. So we got to go back. Let's try Airbnb. Hopefully it'll bring us to the right property. There we go. This actually looks like the same exact property that we were just looking at, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, same exact property. So these two, same exact property. They're just pulling in the data from VRBO and then they're combining the data here, probably just from Airbnb. They may have multiple listings. People list their properties multiple all the time. If you go back here, you can see it is listed by some group. So some group is listing this, and it is a strategy with Airbnb to have multiple listings, which could be responsible for why there's multiple here as well. So this is a 2-bed, 2-bath, 6 guests doing 224, a 4-bed, 5-bath, probably bigger property here doing 409, 4-bed, 4.5. So nothing exact, but we got a pretty nice property here, and it looks like from the comps, especially if 2 bedrooms are coming in and getting this much revenue. Let me do something else here. Let me limit it to just 4 and see what comes up. There we go. Okay, so now we can see 90th percentile, 95th percentile with this. We're really talking, 95th percentile, we're going to be around 400K. Most likely, we're going to be operating somewhere right around, we can be as nice as some of these. Not to say we can be nicer than some of these. This one has a nicer pool and it's not doing as much. So we're going to be, our 90th percentile is going to be right around something like this. We're going to go 1986. That's a little high. I don't want to use that. I want to use 1482. And I think based on the occupancy here, which I'll confirm in a second, we're going to be somewhere around 70 to 80% occupancy. But now at least we know the comps. We know where our property is going to fall. I think it's going to fall pretty close to the 90th percentile. I really do. We got a nice pool. We got a big house. It's an expensive house. It's a big house. It's got a lot of nice furniture in there. We're going to spruce up the backyard, and we're going to make it look very similar to these initial pictures. The only difference between this and the one I'm looking at is these chairs here. So I'll do that all day. You know what I mean? Make it look nice, and we can definitely compete with this. So we're going to be competing pretty close to the 90th percentile, not the absolute 90th percentile where we're doing $2,000 a night at 686. That's not happening. We already discussed why. But now let's move on. So now we honestly gave ourselves an evaluation of where the property will operate. We're going to look up the revenue, the rates, the occupancy, and overview the area. We're going to make sure we're looking at the data for the 50th, 75th, and 90th percentiles and taking note of all three. Then based on where we fall within our own percentiles, we will choose the appropriate average daily rate and occupancy rate and plug that into our calculator to determine our revenue. Compare this with what the rentalizer originally projected, and that's either higher or lower than what the rentalizer originally projected. Make sure we just rationally analyze this. So for example, if my numbers are higher than the rentalizer is projecting, but based on the comps provided, all the listings are terrible, none of these properties have a pool and a home theater like mine, plus all my beds are king size, then that combined with my elite service will surely justify the numbers anticipated being higher than what the rentalizer came back with. So let's go to occupancy. We're looking at the occupancy in the area. This is obviously a very big area. We're going to highlight 90th percentile. We're going to go bedrooms 4. We're going to apply that. 4 bedrooms. Now we can see. So let's just take this data and plug it in. We're at the 100th percentile or the 90th percentile. We're going to be operating definitely at a 95% occupancy rate. 95% occupancy rate. 87 and the lowest points in September 19 was 80. Since 2021, February 21, 100. Dipped a little bit in September. It's a slow season, and right back to 100. So we're going to use a pretty high percentage for this. We're going to go with a 95 percentile here, or 95 occupancy rate, and we're going to plug that in. So this is our base one. We're going to duplicate it. We're going to copy this, and we're going to go 90th percentile. And then we're going to punch in 95, because we know if we operate in the 90th percentile, we're going to be booked out 95% of the time based on the data, right? So let's go back now. This is good information just to have, demand growth, but we're not going to focus too much on this right now. That's more for future projections and determining if the property is going to continue to perform. The demand growth in basically everywhere right now is pretty high. I'm very confident about Miami and the area down here for Airbnb specifically. It's really great. So I'm not going to look at this right now. If I was concerned about the new area I was going into, I would look at the demand growth and see where it's at and see where it's going. But keep in mind, we had COVID the past couple of years. So that's what all of this is like. All these dips, this is when we couldn't travel for COVID and everything like that. So the data is a little bit skewed if you look too far back. Let's go to rates. Do the same thing. We're going to list by 4 bedrooms. We're going to apply the changes. We're going to look at the average daily rates here, and this is the percentile. So basically with the percentiles, you hold your mouse over it. It tells you 95th, 75th, 50th, 25th, 5th, obviously. So I like to be modest with my numbers. I'm going to go back to basically the beginning of 21, and that's like right around here. And I'm going to take the lowest data from the whole year, basically. So the lowest really looks like it's somewhere right around here. 50th percentile is 511, 70th is 710, 95th is 1300. So I'm just going to use the lowest data from the lowest year in the 90th percentile, 95th percentile. Go back here, that was 1300, right? 1301. Go back here, and I'm going to punch in 1301. I got my projections now for the 90th percentile. Now, we're going to duplicate this again. We're going to go 50th percentile. And we're going to come back here. And we're going to grab while we're here, we're going to grab it 50th percentile, 511, which is still extremely high, but numbers don't lie. Do the numbers tell you what to do. So we're talking 511 average daily rate. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go here, 50th percentile, 511 average daily rate. And we are going to go back here and get our occupancy rate for the 50th percentile. Looking at the 50th percentile, it's 80 over here. You know, we're going to just keep going around 61, 50, 50. This is the slow season, just in case anyone is like wondering why it dips in September. Florida, that is a slow season. It's reversed. The summer's a slow season. The winter's the busy season. I'll use a modest one. I think I like to draw a line from here to here, see where the average is. It goes up and down, but I'll use somewhere around here for the average, 61, 80, 80. I'll use 70 because we got some lower, some around 60 in the past year. But that's really all slow season and it's only a few months. And I think it's at least going to be around, I'll use 65. That'll be fair. But you see how I look at this and I determine what's a fair number for me to use based on these occupancy rates. And this is just so I can give myself 3 different performance tiers and really go above and beyond here. So we're going to use 64 for 50th percentile. 50th percentile is right there. And we're going to make this the 75th percentile. And look at the data for that as well. 75th percentile. Again, this is going to be closer to 74. This is, really, most of the time this looks like it's, especially in the past year, above 80. So I'm going to use 80 here. It only drops down here for the 3 months of the slow season, then goes right back above. So I really feel like I could use, I'm not going to use 94, obviously, but for most of the year, it's at 94. So I'm going to use 85, or I'll use 80, depending on how it looks. Let's take a look. So 75th, let's just punch an 80 there. We know we can probably get 85 in that 75th percentile if we need it. So we'll just keep that in the back of our mind. And then let's look at the occupancy or the rates for 75th percentile. Again, I'm going to use that same one over here to go in there, 75th percentile, 327. That's not accurate. We'll go here, 710. Great. That's a good 75th percentile number, 710. Okay. Now, we're going to go and look at the numbers. I like to organize these just so they're in order from highest to lowest, basically. And you can play around with this as you need to, basically. So I just want to see. The rent was 9,000. Still making a lot of money here. That's good because the rent is 8,900. Go through, make sure all the rent is accurate for all of them. Now let's go through some of the costs that we're going to have to acquire. We're going to have to estimate our expenses based on the budget and based on where you intend to operate on the cost spectrum. You're probably going to have to get quotes and look up costs as necessary to get a sound estimate. I'm not going to build costs out in here. I'm just going to use the estimates, like I said, for a good estimate. And you'll see how I do that. This is not how, if I'm really going to go into this and get a solid projection on something I want to move forward on, I'm actually building out the furniture plan. I'm going to Amazon. I'm making sure I can get it done within the amount of money that I think I can get it done with before I do that. But so this specific one, 20,000, that was all in. They wanted last month's rent, and they wanted their difference to be security deposit. So that's all I'm going in terms of rent and the security deposit. Technically, it's $17,800 for rent, and the security deposit would then be $2,200, which is a great deal. We learned to negotiate, and we helped this out. So now This place is fully furnished. Yes, big win. I have no furnishing costs on this place. Labor. I'm going to order some gazebos and stuff. You know what? I'm going to order some gazebos and some outdoor stuff. So I'm just going to put $5,000 down for some of this outdoor stuff. That's really overshot. I need some string lights. I need some furniture. I need some chairs. $5,000 is going to be more than sufficient, and it's really not even necessary. But I just wanted to put it there because I am very thorough with my estimations, and I'm very modest with my estimations. Now, this is a high dollar property. This is one that I snagged live, and that's why I'm showing you. This is a very expensive property. Everything on this is going to be jacked up. If we were looking at somewhere where the rent wasn't $8,900 a month, it was $2,000 a month, obviously everything is going to get significantly reduced, and we'll run through a quick scenario with that after. But just so you can see with an actual scenario here, $5,000 for furniture, labor, let's call it $2,000. Don't need any redo. Photos, $200 for photos. Reserves, I'm not going to count for any reserves right here because I kind of counted for that in my $5,000 with the furniture. Security and locks, I'm going to at least $1,500 for that. Again, this is on the spectrum. I know where I am with my budget, and I know what I'm trying to afford. I'm going to invest more into security systems. I'm going to make sure we have full exterior surveillance, the doorbells, the indoor noise monitoring, the first response smoke detectors. I'm making sure we have all that stuff because it's a high dollar property, and I want to make sure that I'm leaving no stone unturned. On every property, you don't have to do this. It is all what makes sense for you. You do not have to get the security systems. You can risk it. It's completely fine. When you make some money on the property, you can go ahead and invest in it at that point in time, but you don't need to do this. This is just how I'm doing it and how I'm teaching you to do it. So this total investment property, this cost for this investment is $26,900. And right away, it's like, oh, that's a lot. Well, one, consider that the rent is $9,000. We're paying 2 months of rent up front. So besides the rent, we're really not looking at too much here. We're talking about less than $10,000 in everything, including the security deposit. We get rid of the security deposit, we're really talking like $7,000. And that's all extras. I don't need to furnish anything. I could get into this property besides from the rent for just a few $1,000s. And again, I'll run it on a lower scenario after this just so you can see. Actually, I'll just do it right now. If we're talking about something that's $2,000 to rent, first and last month is going to be $4,000. Security deposit, even if it's the full $2,000, that is worst case scenario. First, last month's rent and security deposit. And then we got to furnish it. If it's $4,000 or $2,000 for rent, it's not going to cost that much to furnish. You could potentially get it done. Like I said, 1 bedrooms, I get done at $2,000. 2 bedrooms, you can get done at $3,000. So let's just call it $3,000. Labor, you're gonna do $1,000 for labor, or you could do it yourself if you really want to. I don't recommend it, but you can. Photos, $200. Reserves, you don't need reserves. It's just extra money in the bank, $1,500. So even on this example with security investments, which you could get rid of, you're talking 10 to 12K to get into a unit. Now, if you're going to buy a house, your minimum, even if you're putting 3% down, you're going to be putting in at least, on most prices, $300,000, you're going to be putting at least $9K down just for the down payment, and then closing costs. Closing costs are going to be another $5 to $10K, depending on where you are. If you're in the Northeast, in New York, where I'm from, then you're going to be looking at $15, $20K for closing costs, and good luck finding anything that's $300,000. So, and most of the time, you're not even going to be able to get in at 3% because this is an investment property. To get in at 3% on a purchase for a house, you need to be a primary resident and a first-time home buyer. So unless you're saying you're going to live in this property, you're not purchasing anything for 3 or 5% down. If you're not living in the property and it's an investment, the minimum down is 15%. Minimum down is 15%. And that's really, those are sketchy programs with higher interest rates. So we're talking 15% down on something. Even on $200,000, we're talking about $30K. This is by far the cheapest method to get into real estate. $10,000 for a unit is nothing. And once you see how these units produce, you're not going to be concerned about that at all. So I'm going to jump this back up to $17,800. I'm going to bring my security deposit back to $2,200. Furniture back to $5,000. Labor, I'll bring back to $2,000. Okay, great. So total upfront startup cost, 27,200 based on the 95th percentile. This is how much revenue we're going to make over here. It gets broken down over here by month. Now let's look at our expenses. We have 8,900 a month. Now, cleaning fees. Depends on how many times per month you're going to be cleaning. I say 4 to 8 times per month you will get cleaning. Property like this, I'm planning to get longer rentals here because I want a week, 2 weeks, a month here so I can get, I want to get this taken care of. I want to make sure that this $10,479 expense is covered. If I can get it covered for a month and not have to worry about it for a month and make good revenue on it, that is my goal, right? So I'm anticipating not turning it over more than 4 or 5 times a month. On a 4-bedroom house like this, cleaning is going to be $200. Definitely. It's a big house. You can find a really good cleaner. I have apps for that. We'll go over that when we're talking about hiring cleaners. For now, just know about $100 to $200 per cleaning, depending on what size of the house. This is a big house. It's going to be $200 per cleaning at least. So 5 cleanings a month, $1,000. This is give or take. These are estimates, right? If one cleaning fee is the difference between this making sense and this not making sense, then it doesn't make any sense at all. So you can't be that tight. Utilities, about $300 a month, electric, stuff like that. You can change that as you please. You can increase it, decrease it. That's a pretty good estimate for this size house. A replenishment budget, that's for paper towels, toilet paper, wipes, anything that could be that needs to be in the house. So people have everything they need, K-cups, stuff like that, coffee, tea bags, utensils, everything, sponges, all that good stuff. I have checklists for the amenities, but that's where the replenishment budget goes. The Wi-Fi costs $89 a month. Got the quote out. Renter's insurance is going to cost $40 a month. Got that quoted out. Streaming services, $50 a month for streaming services. I already have streaming services for other units, so it's not really going to be an expense for this property because I already pay for it for other properties, and it's one account that can go across multiple. So I'm going to erase this, but if you don't have any other properties, make sure you account for streaming. And that is a lot of it basically. So all said and done, we're at $10,429. We look at the revenue. Obviously, this makes insane profit if we can operate in the highest percentile. If we can get to 451, which there was a few properties operating at that level. Even at the 700 level, there was a few properties operating. If we can get there, if we can strive for that, we're going to be making a killing. Talking disgusting amount of money here. So a 296 return on investment year one. That's insane. 72% profit margin on a monthly basis. Also insane. Let's go copy this and go here. The same thing and same thing. Now we can go back. We can easily see where it's going to be on each one. 10,479. So the only thing I removed was this. And we can see if the different percentiles are going to affect us. If we go down, we operate in the 75th percentile, we can bring that up to 200K a year, which is slightly above what the projection was from AirDNA. I always operate above the AirDNA projections, and you should too, because again, it's giving you an average based on what exists. We identified a lower property that was not performing the way we were going to perform, and it was skewing our data a little bit low, but we always want to operate above what other people operate at. If I'm looking at someone else doing it, my first thought is, you're doing this, I'm going to do this times 2. You can always do more, except for the property. If the property's a mansion, you can't do that. So that's why I'm not going for 700,000. I capped this out right here at 451. That's if we operate to a T as best as we can operate. This is where our numbers are going to be. If we operate good, sufficient, still superhost status, 75th percentile, we're going to be still in pretty phenomenal shape right here. We're talking about $6,000 a month in profit for a $27,000 investment. Your whole entire investment is made up for in less than 5 months. So that's an insane investment. Most investments, you don't see your money back for years, right? And we're talking about 136% on year one on cash return. But again, this is just so I can show you how to run the numbers and input these. We looked at everything. We looked at the algorithm. We determined what that was going to make. We determined if it's going to make sense or not by looking at the comps. Is there any skewed data? After that, we went into your DNA, we looked at the occupancy rates, we looked at everything over here to make sure that we have our 3 tiers here. And now that we have our 3 tiers here, we can determine safely if this is something I want to move forward on. So now I'm looking at this. What's the worst case scenario? I'm definitely not operating in the 50th percentile, but if I do operate in the 50th percentile, I'm going to be losing a little bit of money. I'm going to be losing a little bit of money every month. So now I know that this property, I have to operate above the 50th percentile. I can't come in with these numbers. I have to come in with higher numbers. I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. I'm very confident that we're going to operate in the 75th and honestly the 95th percentile. But now I know. So this deal is strong, but it's not so strong that if I drop the ball, I'm still going to be able to survive on here. I got to be able to produce these numbers. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So that's why we break this thing out. One, to see how strong the deal is, because sometimes I look at the 50th percentile and I'm still making a 20% profit margin. That's a really good deal. That means if I crap the bed here, I'm still going to be making money. That's an awesome situation to be in. But keep in mind, the data is based off a 12-year span. The past 12 months, we had COVID in play for a period of time, and that delayed things as well. So the numbers, the growth rate is all going up. All these revenues should be higher the next year than they are now. So I'm very confident with these numbers. I know where I'm going to operate. I know I'm going to be operating somewhere between the 75th and 95th percentile, probably right off the bat, 80, 85. And then as you go on, you always collect data from the clients and you make adjustments and changes so that you can get into these higher percentiles. But it also gives you something to shoot for, right? So if I come in here, I operate at 80 percentile right off the bat, I'm constantly striving forward. I see that someone else is doing things at a higher level. I know that it exists out there where I could be doing this if I can make it work. So it's good for a bunch of things. One of them being giving you something to shoot for, letting you know what's possible, and keeping you motivated to always increase your percentile and get yourself up there. And it lets you know what the worst case scenario is as well. So that's how we run the numbers. That was a little bit of a long lesson, but soak it in. Let me know if you guys have any questions. This is something that we're going to be doing on the live calls a lot because we really got to run the numbers multiple times before we start to get the hang of it. I'll go through scenarios where we price out multiple different properties. You can see how they all tally up and add in together the right way. So I'll see you guys on the next lesson. I hope this was useful. And now you guys know how to run the numbers. No excuses.